Welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast, where I, Genevieve Faulkner, share what I'm becoming aware of.
Hello and welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast. My name is Genevieve Faulkner, your host, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about embracing the death. So embracing the energy of death, embracing the mini deaths that occur throughout a lifetime. So life comes in cycles. So we often have all sorts of things that, run its path and then dies. And for me, like, I've just gone through one of these times of death over the last 3 years with getting divorced. My divorce came in this week. So this is kind of like fresh up in my world. And I just kind of wanted to reflect on that a little bit because I think it may contribute to some people, because I think that we are programmed in this world very much to resist death or to fight against it or to try and avoid it. And in that, we can actually end up just creating a lot of suffering for ourselves and other people. So for me, with the ending of my marriage, like, I was the one that left, and that was because what we had created was a relationship that was so kind of enmeshed. It felt like to me that there was not much capacity to grow beyond where I was at if we didn't choose to change it and end it. So it was kind of like no longer working for the future that I desired to create. And I could see that by staying in the marriage that it was going to create less for him also, because really we both probably desired different things as our future. And so I chose to leave for that reason, not because I didn't love him, because I did. I cared and still do care for him deeply. But there was a huge resistance in my world to, I guess, killing it or allowing the death to occur. So on one hand, I made the choice to leave and separated and did all of the stuff that I needed to do. And probably partially because of the enmeshment that I had with him, and, we'd gone through different traumatic experiences together. There was a lot of codependency programs. So I felt very responsible for him. And so there was a lot of, it's taken 3 years for me to work through that programming and put in motion the what's required in order to fully complete and end that marriage. And, it's a funny thing because it's kind of like the thing that got me to the place of actually putting in the paperwork and making the choice to end it was, for a long time, like, I felt like if I actually did that, it would create pain in his world. And I didn't want to be one that was creating pain for him. And so I was kind of like prolonging it, wanting him to be kind of ready for that. Yet then I finally got the awareness that by prolonging it, I was actually prolonging suffering, because by delaying the death of the relationship and putting that final kind of seal in the relationship, what I was doing was creating these energy leaks in both my world and his. So financially, we were still kind of entangled. Like, there was these places and spaces where my choices could affect his world. And to a degree, we're parents together and we're still co-parenting. So like, there is a little bit of an element of that still. But there was this place where I could see that the resistance to the ending was actually creating perhaps a resistance to creation in both of our worlds, because that final decision hadn't been made, or that the final paperwork wasn't in. And so this is what I kind of wanted to get to and kind of just share, is that, you know, you can think that you're being kind, because that's what I was trying to do, was be kind by kind of delaying things because I didn't want to create pain. And yet if somewhere in your world, you know that there is an ending required or a death required, it's actually not kind sometimes to drag it out and wait. It's actually kinder to, you know, in a sense, kill it swiftly. And, you know, maybe not. Sometimes, you know, whatever situation you're in is different, and be in your awareness and look at what's going to create the most. But what I got to eventually was that by making that choice, that was the true kindness, because that was setting us both free to create a new journey, to actually head in the direction of what we'd like as our futures. And so that's kind of like the message of this particular podcast that I wanted to get through. Kind of like, don't delay the death. Don't resist the death, because beyond the death is actually the new beginning. That's the rebirth. That's the beginning of something beyond what you've had that you've probably desired to have, which is why that thing is ending in the first place. And so whether it be a relationship or a job or something else, like, what if you didn't actually resist it? And what if it's okay, even though it seems like it might be cruel or unkind to put an end to something? What if that is actually true kindness? Because if you are no longer in it, if it's no longer contributing to you, it is no longer really contributing to that other person or the people involved in the same way. Because for something to truly work, it has to truly work for everyone, right? So even though in your, you know, like, they may not have that point of view sometimes, and you might think that you're being unkind, actually, if it's not working for you, there's probably something greater out there for that person. Right? Now, this is something that's also kind of been up in my world around other kinds of death also. So I've worked on people that have had like illnesses that, you know, could lead to death. And it's been kind of like, one of the things that like I'm aware of on that journey is when someone's got some sort of illness and they're kind of wanting to heal from it and they're afraid of dying, what can actually occur is they can go into this real kind of fight to stay alive. Like, they're going to fight to end this, you know, to get rid of the sickness. And what can occur then is that you end up creating this place where you're in so much resistance of the death that you don't actually get to put your energy into the healing, because you're actually, it's kind of like you've already decided somewhere that that's where the journey's leading. And then, so that creates this tie to that thing. And then you're running, trying to get away from from what it is that you're defending or fighting against, but you're kind of tied to it. So you just keep getting pulled back into it. So it's kind of like, in order to actually allow yourself to truly live, you've got to get out of resistance of the death. You've got to allow that possibility. When you don't have any kind of resistance to death, you can actually choose living, right? Which is the same thing. It's just a different kind of element to it. It's the same if you're a healer. If you're somebody like who is in the healing arts of energy healing or anything else like that, it's kind of like you can't be a truly great healer unless you're willing to facilitate death. Because if you're not willing to facilitate death, if you're not willing to let someone die, what you do is you will try and force living onto them. And so that can create this insane kind of thing where, again, like, it can be very exhausting for everyone involved when that's the point of view. And it's not kind. Like, death is, for me, from my point of view, is just a transition. It's just like birth, right? So it's kind of like just jumping through a portal. And from that point of view, I can kind of, you know, there's been times in my life where people have chosen to go and I've celebrated that choice for them. It's kind of like, yeah, you're moving on to the next adventure. Like, the suffering's ending, you know, you made a different choice for yourself. High five, you know, like, it's awesome. Like, and I think that if you don't have that charge around death and you actually just allow people to be able to choose it, it just creates so much space for people to be able to have real choice and not fight against what they've decided is right or wrong to choose. So, with all of that in mind, I guess the question I have to you today to look at is there anything in your world that needs to die or end that you've been avoiding or resisting? And what is it that you're like, what's the value of that resistance? What are you getting out of resisting it? What have you decided that you lose if that thing dies? And what if that wasn't true? So if you were willing to allow whatever that is to die, because whatever that is, it's kind of like when you're in that resistance to something dying, even though you know that it's time for it to die, what actually happens is you take yourself out of the true flow of living. So you take yourself out of the being in alignment with your being and what it desires to choose. So you create this weird stagnation, and what you'll actually do with that, it's kind of like if you're not in the flow of living, you're actually beginning to create the death yourself. Okay, so when you resist something dying, that's what you're doing. You die instead. So what are you valuing more than life, more than living? And if you didn't do that, what would have to die? And what would you be choosing instead? If that did die, and what is the resistance to choosing that? Because sometimes we'll hold on to something that we know it's time to end because we're actually also resisting the new beginning or what it is that we think that new beginning is going to bring. And part of the reason for that is because if you jump into that new beginning, a lot of the time what will occur when you have a new beginning is you can kind of like step into a different version of you. So some old identity dies. So in a sense, it's kind of like you have to let go of whatever it is that you think you are and actually allow yourself to transform into something different. And that can be a really uncomfortable space. And sometimes that can feel like, you know, everything in your world is just like your whole universe is exploding all at once, you know, 1 million different emotions. It can feel like the carpet's being ripped beneath your feet. It can feel so uncomfortable. But if you're not willing to allow yourself to have that, you create stagnation and you create death in a way that probably doesn't really work for you. So to truly live, I believe, requires you to be willing to have those mini deaths throughout your life and to allow yourself, the versions of you to die, or the versions of what you think you are, the false identities of you, because I think that us as beings, we have an essence that doesn't die, yet we can have these identities created from belief systems that we misidentify as ourselves, and then they die, but we can hold on to them by mistake because we think that that's us. That's not us. And you've got to be willing to let them die, to truly allow yourself to constantly be born anew and to step into different parts of yourself and to grow and thrive. Now, if anybody has anything coming up by watching this, any resistance to death, anywhere you know that you're fighting against it, or you're trying to avoid it, or you're just stuck in grief, you don't know how to get to the good bit, you don't know how to get to the new beginning, you don't know how to thrive, I will have a Zoom series coming up starting at the end of the month called Phoenix Rising, which will be about this kind of journey. So where anyone's had what I call a tower event, which in the tarot, like the tower is very much that crumbling of reality, like everything you thought you knew, just kind of like dissolving, the carpet being ripped beneath your feet. Anyone that's had that kind of experience and is experiencing the death of something as a result. So sometimes that might be a relationship ending, a job ending, a way of life ending, getting some sort of illness, like something like that. Anywhere any of you have had that and don't kind of know how to step into that new transformational journey, you can come and join me for this journey, and I will assist you to kind of transform and to step into the newer, greater version of you. You can check that out via my website. There will be a link below this video. So yeah, just to finish up on this topic, where are you? What deaths are you avoiding? And are you in resistance to your own death? And what if you didn't? What if you weren't? What if you allowed yourself to truly live? Because it's kind of like when you have resistance to your own death, there will be things that you won't choose because you will decide it's not safe because you might die. Yet do you see that if you didn't have any resistance to death, you might actually make different choices that may actually create more of a thrival energy within you because you'd allow yourself to truly live. So I'd like to invite you to just kind of like have that in your world and kind of allow it to unravel anything. You know, and next time you go to make a choice and you find yourself resisting, you can ask yourself, well, is this a resistance based upon an unwillingness to live life to the fullness? It could be because I'm resisting death. And if that is the case, if that seems light, if I didn't have any resistance to death, what would I choose? Of course, like I am not encouraging anyone to go jump off a cliff or anything like that without a parachute or glider or whatever. But you know, just look at where do you take yourself out of your awareness with choice because of a resistance to being unsafe that is actually based upon some sort of implant of fear because you're resisting death. There is so many people afraid of dying. There's so much in this world that's designed to keep us alive. Yet if we didn't have all that programming around death, and if it was just a choice and we didn't have any resistance to it, and we kind of like just acknowledged that it's kind of like just a kind of inevitable part of the journey for our bodies, but we beyond our bodies still exist, still thrive, still get to choose beyond that experience. It's just a transition. How would we function in this lifetime differently? So it's a bit of a like deep topic. I hope that it has contributed something to you for me to kind of just bring this up and kind of put it in your world. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you have any comments about this, feel free to leave them. Any questions? Yeah, and if there is any other topics that you'd like me to do a video on, feel free to leave messages about that also. So I will leave it there. Thank you so much for listening, guys. And yeah, see you later.